both Hazbin Hotel and Hello Boss, but especially Hazbin Hotel, has had a huge female audience.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
That's a good one. Well, I mean, I think part of it is that I'm a woman, so I feel like the show has inherent female gaze. I know what's appealing to me. I think also being a queer woman, there's an element of it just being like there's a little bit of, I guess, like a pseudo male gaze as well. So there's like enough. Everyone's hot. I'm just like, I want everyone to be hot. But I think what's also fun about it is that I think part of the female gaze that people always underestimate is the attraction to characters that are just fun and cool and like exciting, and that doesn't always equate to like a traditional like attractiveness. And so I really challenge myself to make characters that are fun and unique and distinct, but are still really engaging and attractive in like a way that doesn't really make sense to anyone until they're watching it. And I feel like that's an experience that's just a very female experience. Like I feel like not really knowing why you have a crush on like the weird looking cartoon character guy that you like grew up with, you know? Like one time a friend of mine made this like video that was like about cartoon crushes, and they were like, they would ask all the men, like, what's your cartoon crush? And they would all say these traditional female characters that are, like, traditionally attractive. And all the women would answer with, like, Yakko Warner or, like, Beetlejuice. That was one of mine. Like, you know, like, or, like, I had a huge crush on the tallest from Invader Zim.
Yeah.
I don't know why. They're not very attractive.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. Remember the
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of like non-human but like fun and like interesting characters. And so I think like that inherently is in my world. I think that experience, that young girl that was weird like that and grew up with this unique like perspective is in the show inherently just by my creating of it and my writing of it. But I also just think that the focus on female characters that I have is I treat them like characters. And it's interesting because I'll see people go, oh, these characters are not interesting or whatever. And I'm like, they are. It's just that they're not like you're used to the woman character being pushed to the front because and made to have either a tragic backstory or like a really over the top skill set that, you know, she's the best at this or she's whatever. And I'm like, no, I kind of like having a bunch of girl failures or like characters who are just people and are very realistic, and characters who can explore sexuality and like all these different things. Like, because I deeply care about my female characters, but I treat them in a way where I'm not just going to shove them to the front because they're the only females in the cast.
Yeah.
You know, I really like Hazbin especially has a predominantly female-led cast, and Hell of a Boss has a little bit more of supporting characters, but I try to make them as distinct as possible and their stories as real as possible. But yeah, so I could talk for hours about this subject, so I'll stop rambling.
A quick follow-up, because I know that women in animation is also very, like, it's a small number of people.
Yeah.
How is that changing?
I'm really positive that it's starting to change. I feel like I'm seeing more and more female showrunners, which is really exciting. But yeah, like it's still, especially in adult animation, it's still kind of a boys' club. And so I feel like there's also an element of this show that it's like kind of breaking a lot of new ground. Because I also, you know, I'm a musical theater fan. I'm bringing some of that taste to it as well. And I feel like, you know, it's a world that I think is expanding, and I'm really hoping to see more women in this space, not only animation, but also adult animation. Because I feel like our perspectives, like, we're just as, like, you know, we can be just as raunchy and just as, like, loud and funny, you know? It's just that I feel like sometimes we aren't expected or not allowed to be. And I feel like I'm hoping that my show being as loud and annoyingly like itself and kind of cringe, but like in a way that like it deserves to be, I guess. I'm hoping that helps encourage people to be as their cringeest self, because that's like the real you know?
Building on like the loudness and just the wildness of it, and I say this from a place of like I have no religious background.
Yeah.
But I am super curious. Like, are there any biblical characters or storylines that you were like, this is too extreme even for the Helliverse? Like, we cannot bring these folks.
That's a good question. So far, no.
Okay.
So far, everything that I take from kind of like the religious trauma of my lived life as a child is probably like I just want to do a comment on it. Like if I have something to say about it, I feel like it's worth including. But if I don't, it's like, yeah, we probably just don't need this. It's such a fictionalized world that I don't want to tie it too much to one religion. So I kind of take from like the stories everyone sort of knows, which is like especially the biggest one for me is the Adam and Eve story, because it's like so iconically known, but it's also one that's used so often to pin the blame on women and put women down. And that's something that growing up, I was like, that's really and so in the show, we will get a little bit more into that, and we'll kind of explore it in a more, again, more female gaze way, and in a little bit more of a critical way, but in a fictionalized way as well, which I'm excited for.
How do you feel about bringing these kind of stories and changing what morality means to all these people that always felt weird about their otherness and about their queerness?
I'm so thankful that my show is able to be like as loudly and openly queer as it is, because like especially when I first made it, I feel like that was just not something we were seeing. I'm thankful that we're seeing it more and more now. It feels like almost every show has some element of queerness in it, but I do still think that my show is one of the only shows that allows the queer characters to be fully flawed people and fully like fleshed and real people, because I think part of the queer experience is there's no one way to be queer. You know, there's some people who are very loud and open and kind of messy and kind of like have flaws and go partying and have fun and are not afraid. There's also some people that are very quaint and kind of to themselves and also very like domestic and, you know, comfortable being like at home with their partner and watching like cartoons and playing Mario Kart. Like there's no one queer experience. You know, you can have both of those things and you can have one extreme and one side. Like it's such an experience that I feel like what I want in my shows to reflect like the vastness of queer identity. And so it's very important. Obviously, like writing Hell of a Boss with Brandon is huge, because Brandon is in a very, very specific, he's such a specific like identity in the queer space. And also just like personality wise, he's just such a like, I'm in constant awe of him as a person. And then with Hazbin, you know, it's got so much more, like it's got characters with really deep backstories about their identity, and it has a little bit more to do with the life that they lived on Earth. And so exploring queerness between the two shows is really interesting, because one has more of the human perspective and one has more of like a society that has none of the same pressures that we have in the real world, maybe just a little bit of allegory here and there. So yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
So since it has been announced that there's possibly going to be crossovers, are they going to be able to be in the actual shows, or are they going to be shorts? And if then, is it going to like conflict with like plot lines?
That's actually a great question. So I think like obviously my dream is to do like a classic like crossover special where we make that the whole focus. Realistically though, the timelines of the shows are just something we have to factor in. So that's definitely not out of the cards. But as of right now, the biggest challenge is weaving in the crossovers with the two storylines that are so different and so separate from each other. But I'm excited because we definitely have ways of doing it. So people are just gonna have to wait and see how we do it.
What we had like with a special Mammon episode, like I can see something like that coming, where it doesn't like conflict with any plot lines. Because we've all been thinking like, how are they going to integrate both of these together? Because it's different rings of hell.
Exactly. Yeah. There's rules too, like the sinners can't go into the rings and stuff like that. So there's definitely like lore that we have to navigate. But I'm really excited. I think the way that we're doing crossovers is very organic, and we're gonna start a certain way and then maybe build to something bigger. Very excited. Yes, absolutely.
I know that it was announced that soundtracks for both series are going to be released.
Yes.
Can you speak to the importance of music in both of your series?
Absolutely.
Also, this release will, if you think it will grow the audience even more so.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, music is hugely important to me. Both shows are musicals in different ways. Hazbin obviously is a much more traditional Broadway musical. I always get them wrong. One of them's diegetic, one's non-diegetic. One of them is one, and one of them is the other. I always mix up which one's which. I don't know why. It's such a simple thing to remember, and I've been asked so many times, but I just cannot in my brain lock them in. But point being, one of them is like very traditional musical where they just kind of burst into song. The other one, we try to find excuses for them to burst into song. Though as the shows go on, we kind of are leaning into the musical side of Hell of a Boss as well. But yeah, I think the musicals in general, I think, are such an underrated art form. I think that they are incredibly good at, like, one thing musicals are really good at is taking really dark stories and making them palatable. Some of the darkest stories I've ever seen are on stage. Like, I really am shocked by some of the things that Broadway has turned into musicals in terms of story, but it works because the songs have such an emotion and such a palpability to them, but they also are delivering information in a way that's a little bit easier to take in than just the rawness of like a scene or a monologue or something. And so I think music is very important in helping us tell the story, helping us set a tone, and also I think just in general they're fun. And I love doing them. So, and the soundtrack element makes it really like you get to celebrate that music on your own as well.